It's time to start the final project of the course, the summative assignment, the ISU as it were. And as you guys know, basically for all three courses, the grade 10, the grade 11, and the grade 12, it's basically the same assignment. And what's going to happen is in the grade 12, you have the option to work as a group, anywhere from 1 to 4 people. However, in grades 10 and 11, you are restricted to work as an individual. So what these videos are going to do is go over all the phases and all the different aspects of those things. What they're not going to do is read the assignment to you. We don't have time for that. The documents can be long in nature, so some of it will be paraphrasing, so it is still up to you to go through the assignment and read it and get the finer details to make sure that you don't miss anything and or overlook anything. So first off, basically we're at the end of the course at this point. You've finished at least assignment 2, and you're starting to contemplate what you're going to be doing for your ISU, what you're going to be doing for your final project, and that can be any game you want to make. And we use a game for a very specific purpose because it forces you not to make, well, you are going to make a game, but it forces you to use your tool set in a very challenging way. It's not just a simple, can you do this, can you do that? Can you really apply it to something effective? So just to go over these things, we're going to start off with phase 0, which is, there's going to be 4 phases in the entire ISU. Phase 0, 1, and 2 are what's called the design phases. And these ones together are going to combine to create a regular assignment that exists in the class. It's not part of any culminating mark. It's just a regular evaluated assignment, and it's weighted roughly a little bit less than a regular programming assignment. Phase 3, which is the 4th phase, will be the programming phase of your actual ISU, and that will be your summative component, or 15% of your grade in the grade 10 and 11, 20% of your grade in the grade 12. So let's start with phase 0. This is the phase you all should be on at this point. Let it be known that if you miss any due dates on any of the phases, you will receive a 10% deduction on that phase of the assignment. So be very careful. It's not 10% deduction on the whole assignment. It's on that phase, so all the components of that individual phase. First thing we're going to be looking at is excuses. So what you're looking at on the screen here is an incomplete list of excuses. What it boils down to is, don't make any excuses. Be accountable for your actions, plan ahead, and don't let anything stop you. There's always ways to solve the problem, alternate locations, making sure, most importantly, that your data is backed up on a daily basis. And I sound a little redundant when I say this, because I say this in class all the time, but you need to back up your data. It happens every single semester, a couple days before the final project is due. Somebody's flash drive breaks, is stolen, is lost, or something along those lines. Quite frankly, I can't help you at that point. You need to have daily backups. So at the very most, you'll have lost a single day of work, and that is not that bad. Now, if you're losing, 5 weeks of work, I can't help you at that point. You need to make sure that you're responsible enough to maintain your own data. Okay. So let's go on into what the purpose and everything of this project is. So this is a summative project, and its whole purpose is basically to demonstrate what you've learned, and not just say I can create a loop. No, you're going to demonstrate it in a complex application. You're going to be doing a lot of problem solving. You're going to be handling a lot of things that you're not used to handling. Some things that you've never done before, and that's why it's called an independent study unit, because you're going to have to learn new things. What I've given you is a set of tools. You're going to then take that set of tools and build something hopefully awesome. Hopefully. And that end product is going to be relative to where your skill set lies. So when you're setting your goals, you should be aiming for just outside of your comfort zone. So if your skill set is X, then you should be looking at X plus a little bit more. Just make sure that you're challenging yourself enough that you're going to have to work hard, but not too much that you're not going to be able to complete your goals. So be very careful. So you are going to be able to implement a game project of your choosing with approval of the teacher, but for the most part, most games are accepted. The only time that your game is not going to be accepted is if it's vastly out of the question in terms of either content or complexity. You're not going to be making Halo or Call of Duty or anything like that for your project. You just simply don't have time. You may build something in a similar genre, but toned down to a fairly significant degree. So moving down to the statement, what this section goes down to is talks about what types of games you could be possibly looking at. I've given a few examples. Your game must be unique. You cannot do a remake of a game that already exists. Okay, so I need to make that very clear. Now, that being said, you can make a game that's in the same genre and may be inspired by, but you cannot recreate Super Mario Bros. 1, for example. You can't do that. The only exception to this rule is if you are digitizing a board game that already exists. So maybe you're a big fan of Monopoly or something like that. So you want to create Monopoly. Great. That's fine. I'll accept that. But in all other cases, no games can be recreated in their entirety or very reasonably close to it. So just to go over some ideas, on the novice column you see here, what that means is everybody should be able to accomplish these without putting themselves in too much dire stress. An endless runner, something like Jetpack Joyride or Temple Run, somewhere along those lines. A space shooter, something like Galaga. There's a whole bunch of like R-Type and a whole bunch of other types of games like that. Intermediate level, where things are a little bit more complicated. Your average student should be able to finish this on time within the timelines. A digital board game like Monopoly, Life, or something like that. A platformer, something similar to Super Mario Brothers. A projectile-based game, Angry Birds, Gorillas, Worms, all these types of games. On the advanced side of things, now these are advanced for one of two reasons: either they're really, really big, or they're really complicated. And it could be a mixture of the two, I suppose. So a role-playing game. This is big. It's not necessarily super complicated, but it is big. So you have to spend a lot of time planning. Don't just jump into it and hope for the best, because your code is going to get huge and very difficult to manage very quickly. A digital collectible card game, something like Hearthstone or Magic the Gathering, Pokemon, Digimon, all these other games, on the same idea. Remember, you need to create your own unique one. A tower defense game like Pixel Junk Monsters and umpteen other ones that are online. I think even Bloons has one nowadays. And then you see on the bottom there two more. A matching puzzle game. Let's look at that one first, like Tetris, or an item finder game. Now, I have spread those across all three difficulties because it really matters in how you go about this. So if you make a very basic game like Bejeweled, with its basic sense of just finding three items that are beside one another, that's a fairly simplistic game. But you can really take that and expand upon it to something like Puzzle Quest, where there's like storyline and power-ups and all these other crazy things involved, and that can make it a very complex game. Sometimes you can take a simple idea like tic-tac-toe and keep stacking on it until you get something really awesome, like 3D tic-tac-toe and all these other cool things. And then the very bottom one, an interesting game of your own design. That is probably the best one, because really you just tell me what you want to do, explain it clearly, and hopefully you're good to go. So just some basic terminology going into section 2.3 here. A game mechanic. Now this is a very important thing, because your entire project is going to be based around what a game mechanic is. You're going to be marked on your game mechanics, how well you accomplish them, and do they make sense for the game, things like that. So just to define, I'm going to read this to you. A game mechanic is an ability or set of rules that govern what a player can do in a game. So for example, a wall jump in Super Mario Brothers, or a restricted save game ability in Resident Evil. So what I mean by that is, in the original Resident Evil, you weren't allowed to save your game unless you found an item, an ink tape for a typewriter in the game. That was it. So if you had to go to the bathroom or you had to go to work or whatever, you either left your console on or you found some ink tape and you saved your game. You see a link there to a YouTube video that talks about 10 influential game mechanics over the years. Watch the video, get some ideas. You'll find some really awesome ones. Game mechanics, what this is going to do is just give you an idea what truly a game mechanic is. Now you need to come up with a few for your game. Obviously, at least 3, but it could be more. It depends on your game itself. It may be less, but probably not, and I probably won't accept less for the most part. So the project breakdown. So the project, as I said, is going to be broken down in 4 phases. I'm not going to go through this in too much more detail. The first 3 are the design phases, and they're their own standalone project, and then the 4th one is the summative project itself, and that's the actual implementation of it. What we're on right now is phase 0, the pre-planning phase. So what's going to happen here is you're going to fill out a basic overview document of what you want to build for your game. You're going to have to come up with a few details, so I'm just going to quickly jump over. When you're done watching this video, you're going to be clicking on and you're going to end up opening up this document. Where did it go? I lost it. Right here. There it is. You're going to be opening up this document and filling it out and then submitting it on Google Classroom. Or whatever website we're using at the time of when you're taking this class. But so basically what you see here is I need you to put your name, if you're in a group, all the group members' names, a company name. Come up with a company, a name. If you were to start up a brand new video game company today, what would you call it? A few basic game details. What is going to be the title of your game? What genre of game is it going to be? Is it an RPG? Is it an action game? Is it an adventure game? Is it a shooter, a rhythm game? All these different ideas, tons of them. Game camera viewpoint. So as a user, what is my viewpoint? So is it like first person? Is it side scroller? Is it top down? Is it a 3/4 view, like isometric? There's all these different camera view angles that you can think of. Tell me what it's going to look like. And then a game graphical theme description. So talk to me the type of mood that's going to be that you're trying to set. So for example, Resident Evil is dark and scary, very atmospheric, lots of fog and lots of shadows and whatnot. Whereas Super Mario Brothers is usually set in like a nice green grassed area with blue skies and clouds. It's happy, and you get 2 totally different things from this. If it's a sad game, maybe there's a lot of rain going on and thunder and lightning, things like this. Things that set certain moods that get the player feeling the way you want them to feel. Game overview. So basically, this is your game description. What is it about? What is the player's goal? What makes the game fun? How will it be controlled? And the number of players. From this brief description, 1 paragraph, no more, I should be able to visualize your game in action. I should be able to see it in my mind and envision myself playing it. If I can't, you need to redo this little paragraph. Get a friend to read it and see if they can visualize it. Get them to describe the game back to you, and if it matches what you're envisioning, then you're good to go. If not, go back to the drawing board. Mechanics. This is really the meat of the issue. Now, this is a preamble to what you really want to do for the game. You may come up with more in the next phase, but for now, this gives me a good idea that you're on the right track. So, again, it just goes over what the definition of a game mechanic is. I've got 8 rows here for you. You may have more, you may have less. If you need more, add more rows just by right-clicking on here and say Insert Row Below. Where is it? Row Below. And if you have less, get rid of the rows you're not using. So just select them, right-click, and say Delete the rows. Okay. So fill it out. Give your mechanic a name. So it might be wall jump or something like that. Give it a quick name, no more than 3 words, so it's brief. And then in the third column, I want to know where will I see it in the game? Where will it be used? So for example, if it's a wall jump, it might be to get up a vertical tunnel of walls to get up to a high point or something like that. And this may be used in like the puzzle solving of your game. You may have more than 1 point in this because you might be using it in multiple different locations depending on what your game mechanic is. You might have a game mechanic of inventory management. And that might be like in the original Resident Evil, it was built on a grid system, and you had to kind of fit your items in this grid, and some items took up more than one grid square, and you could rearrange them almost like Tetris inside your grid. That was a mechanic, and you used that every time you got a new item. Every time you removed an item, you had to reorganize yourself so you could try and fit everything in. So that's what you're going to be filling out for the initial project plan. So just going back here, so that is the pre-planning phase. So just to go over this here, while part of your grade will be based upon your success of completing your mechanics, another part of your grade will be based on your intelligence, understanding, comprehension, and good sense at choosing mechanics that are neither too hard to be achieved and too easy to be significant. Inventiveness and originality will count as well. So this phase is your initial planning, and you cannot go on to phase 1 until this has been approved. So what's going to happen is you're going to submit this document on Google Docs, or sorry, on Google Classroom. I'm going to read it, I'm going to make comments, and I'm going to ask you to make some changes. Maybe some things will be approved, maybe some things will be denied. But you're going to have to go back, you're going to make some changes, and you're going to resubmit again. And then I'm going to go back and I'm going to make more comments. And then if it's good, I'm going to give you a message that says good to go. If it's not good, I'm going to make more comments and say make some more changes. And this process will go back and forth until I'm happy with what you have. And it may not be perfect, but it should be relatively usable at that point. And then once I give you the good to go, then phase 1 will be open to you, and you'll be able to go on to the next part of the project. Academic honesty, basically it boils down to this. Anything you submit must be your code. Now you may do a lot of research, how to do certain things, different algorithms and whatnot, and that's fine. Do it. But remember, you should be looking at ideas, not actual code. So look at the algorithm behind what's going on, not the actual code for solving the problem. You need to write your own code. Your code shouldn't come from anybody else, whether that's a classmate, a friend, a relative, a stranger that you're paying, a tutor. It should not come from anybody. And if it does and you are caught, then we have to deal with that on a case-by-case basis, depending on the level of dishonesty that's involved, but it will not be a pleasant situation. So this assignment is worth a significant portion of your marks, so please don't fall into that realm. A few little words of wisdom in terms of finding a project. Find something that you're interested in. Choose something that you actually care about. Don't choose something that you think I will like, because I like all games. Okay? So choose something that you're going to get behind and you feel committed to, because you're going to be devoting a significant portion of your life for the next few weeks in solving this problem. So make sure it's something that you really, really feel strongly about. In terms of choosing your game mechanics, that's all on you. I can't help you in any way on that because it's your game. You need to decide. You're the game designer, so you need to decide what the game mechanics are going to be in your game. You don't have to use game mechanics that exist already. You can come up with your own. Be creative. Find something interesting. Just make sure that the game mechanics lend themselves to the project. Do not try and come up with game mechanics and then wrap a project around that. Go the opposite direction. Come up with a game idea and then figure out what mechanics would make sense within that game. Okay? Deliverables for this phase, just that initial project planning sheet that we just went over. That's it. Your evaluation, now this is the evaluation for all the first 3 phases, phases 0, 1, and 2. Phases 0 only come in play for 5 marks. 1 mark of this piece, and then way down here, how well thought out and reasonable was your initial planning document. Alright, so that's only 5 marks out of 40 for that first phase, phase 0. So that's the beginning. Once you're done with this, submit and we go through the process and we can continue from there.